Hello all, and it's time to talk about a little bit of history. So today we're talking about glasses. No, not these glasses. These glasses. Now, before we get into glasses, we all know about the Dark Ages. Everyone was covered in filth, people longed for the glory days of Rome, and everything just sucked until the Renaissance, when things got better. Depending on who you ask, the Dark Ages ended in either the 11th century or went all the way up until the fall of Constantinople in 1453. It can vary, but for a lot of people, the Dark Ages can be called that time between the fall of Rome and the Renaissance. Yes, the Dark Ages, or more kindly, the Middle Ages, a time when people barely understood fire, wearing clothes, and getting eyeglasses so they could read. Wait a minute, what? Yep, eyeglasses. Those things that way too many gamers end up wearing because of all the late night raids. They were invented in the Middle Ages. You heard it. A better way to read was invented in the quote, dark, unquote, ages. Now the idea of using artificial methods to help people read is actually pretty old. In fact, the idea of magnifying glasses dates back to the Greek era, with the writer Aristophanes referring to a burning glass in his comedy, The Clouds, written way back in 423 BC. Later, the Roman philosopher Seneca discovered the principles, or, he was the first case where it was written down, of using a glass globe of water to read all the books of Rome. Guess that cemented his place as one of the great bookworms of history. So how did we get from there to glasses? Well, in the 11th century, Ibn al-Haytham writes the Book of Optics, which helps found the science of optics, in addition to all kinds of other contributions, including the scientific method. And this gets spread all over Europe. Yes, people actually shared knowledge in, quote, the Dark Ages, unquote. And by this time, monks and other reading types were using what they called reading stones. These were flat-bottomed, convex spheres of glass or crystal that you put on top of what you were trying to read. It would magnify the text underneath, and that allowed generations of readers and authors, be they monks or others, to keep working long after their natural eyesight had degraded. But the big change from magnifying glasses to eyeglasses comes in Italy in the 1200s. We know that Robert Grosseteste and Roger Bacon both talked about the possibility of using optics to read. But our first comment describing their use comes in 1306, when Friar Giordano da Pisa, I'm sorry for pronunciation here, guys, wrote, "It is not quite 20 years since the invention of those spectacles which enable those elderly with weakened eyesight to continue reading and writing." The specific text can vary depending on your source. Now, supposedly, Giordano's friend Alessandro del Spina saw someone who could make these glasses, but didn't want to share the secret. He learned how to make them and shared his glasses with any who needed them. That might be apocryphal, so take that with a grain of salt, but that is the story. Now, the important note is that by this time, glasses have been around for a fair number of years, and their impact was well known. By 1300 in Venice, we know that there were regulations regarding the use of counterfeits for reading or magnifying glasses, and the year after, you could make glasses so long as you labeled them as spectacles with glass lenses. Now that's probably because crystal lenses were seen as more valuable. And lastly, by the 1400s, we know that it was possible to get glasses to order. The Duke of Milan, Francisco Sforza, in 1462, orders 36 sets of glasses, and he specifies differing prescriptions for his eyes. One type for the long view, one type for the common view, and one type for the short view. Now granted, this is towards the end of what we consider the Middle Ages, but it's still a sign of a dynamic and progressing field. Now these were not the kind of glasses we have today. They didn't have stems that sat over your ears. They were perched on your nose, as you can see in the first depiction of glasses in art. Probably a lot of people managed to lose their glasses when they bent down to look at something. How did you adjust your glasses? You adjusted them by using the nut that joined the two frames together to tighten or loosen them against your nose. By the 1600s, we get the innovation of tying fabric around your ears to hold them on. And then in the 1700s, we get what would eventually evolve into the stems we use today. But it's important to note, During this period, we have a problem that's identified. I can't read without glasses. A solution was discovered, spectacles that sit on my face, and it pretty quickly spreads across Europe, complete with certain regions having regulations regarding counterfeit designs and a growing field of optometry, or as you know them, eye doctors. Now that doesn't sound very dark age to me. So when you hear about these dark ages, especially if you're peering at your computer through your glasses, just remember, they weren't dark, and they are a big part of the reason why you can read the words on your computer today. Lastly, if your kids ever complain about ugly glasses, you can threaten them with this set of glasses, complete with face mask and horns. Granted, I think they would look a little kick-ass if you went to elementary school wearing them. You're welcome. Thanks much for listening, and I hope you found this at least a little informative. If you like what you're hearing, you can always subscribe. Links are in the description. I'm getting better with pronunciation, so we're hopefully going to have better pronunciation as we keep going. Thanks much. Have a good week.